All right. So I think I'm back live. You gotta love it, Truth Seeker. 2 weeks in a row. I've just been sitting here, doing my thing, doing my podcast, and what do you know, it gets cut out 40 or 50 minutes in. And I know they just want to make me seem crazy. Oh, they're attacking my internet. I've lost internet once since last week when I lost my internet during the podcast. What are the odds that it happened again during my podcast 7 days later? I mean, it's just a joke. So I was talking about the New Mexico bus crash, and bear with me just a minute, guys, just so I can get my bearings here and figure out what's going on with the stream and get the chat back up. It's really, really annoying that they're splitting my frickin' podcast into two like this. All right. Live streaming. All right, I am live. Great. Welcome back to the chat, everybody. Welcome to Welcome to internet censorship. And, you know, again, I never have ever lost internet while on my Xbox. Ever. Like, I have probably, I don't know, in the last year and a half, I probably got like 10 or 12 days played on Rocket League. Like, that's like counting just my time online. And my internet has never once cut out in those 12 days of online play in the last year and a half. Never once have I lost internet. And it's not just my computer, it's my entire network that goes out. My tenant upstairs loses his internet. It sucks. It's never happened on my Xbox. But I start streaming on YouTube 2 weeks in a row, boom, shit's gone, I gotta reconnect it. Okay, so moving on. We were talking about the number 47. This is so key to the ritual of the bus crash in New Mexico. The Freemasonic emblem, which is set to 47 degrees. Again, 47 degrees between the tropics. The Freemasons have something called the 47th problem of Euclid, which is about establishing foundation. Now, the word news has double gematria of 47, both in reverse and in the English Kabbalah. The date numerology of this crash, 8 plus 30 plus 1 plus 8, sums to 47. And here we're talking about a head-on collision. Head-on equals 47. It was a collision with a semi-truck, which sums to 47 single reduction. It happened in McKinley County. McKinley equals 47 with the K exception. Well, and Thoro, New Mexico is where it crashed. Thoro NM, using the reverse reduction method, also equals 47. Now, there was another bus crash in New Mexico that killed 3 people. They originally said it injured 22, like a 322. But yeah, this just happened in July. The date was July 15th. And if you measure from that date to the date of this bus crash, it's 47 days with the end date included. July 14th, meanwhile, the day before that, is the birthday of the governor, Susana Martinez. It was 47 days after her birthday. The name Martinez equals 47. New Mexico, where this occurred, was the 47th state admitted to the Union, and it was 4 months, 7 days before the anniversary of New Mexico's date of statehood. The bus that crashed took off from St. Louis. St. Louis equals 47. The 47th prime number is 211. The name of the governor, Susana M. Martinez, equals 211. This bus was headed for Los Angeles, California, which also equals 211. So no wonder my stream got cut just as I got to this part, right? Because all these 47s is so frickin' undeniable that this is just numeric ritual. Nothing to be afraid of, guys. If you're on a Greyhound bus, don't be worried about a semi-truck, running into you head on. I mean, maybe it happened, but something happened, right? We saw the crash. We just didn't see any evidence of any injuries. Now, this is where the stuff gets really freaking creepy, guys, right? There's been a few major bus crashes recently. The one that sticks out the most is the one that happened in Saskatchewan, where like 15 kids were killed from a hockey team. This bus crash measures to those dates incredibly well. Now, first of all, the word bus equals 42, using the alphabetic order. The word new equals 42. New Mexico equals 42, reverse reduction. The governor, Susanna, equals 42. So the worst school bus disaster of all time, this is the second worst bus crash in the history of the United States. It killed 29 people. This occurred on May 21st, 1976. If you measure from the date of that crash to the date of this crash in New Mexico, it's 42 years, 3 months, and 9 days. The word bus equals 42, alphabetic order, and 39 in the reverse alphabetic order. And look at where the Yuba City bus disaster was. It happened in Martinez, California. Can you believe this shit? Martinez? This whole time I've been talking about the governor of New Mexico, Susanna Martinez. Now, the word bus in the reverse reduction method equals 21. And if you measure to that bus crash in Saskatchewan earlier this year, which I did a lot of work on, it was exactly a span of 21 weeks. That bus crash also all by the numbers. The word crash has gematria of 22 reduction and 49 ordinal. The date numerology of the crash, 22 reduced, and a life lesson number of 49. They also said 49 people were on the bus, and we'll talk more about this number in a second. So when I started this post, in the last part of the first half of this podcast video, I mentioned how the word circle equals 40. And, the 40th prime, 173, which ties into the date. So look at this. At least 40 people were transported to the hospital. The tractor trailer was traveling on I-40. And it was near mile marker 50. The word circle equals 40 and 50. The word mathematics, by the way, also has this value of 40, so that's significant to this as well. Again, it's the mathematics of the circle that we're talking about here in this pi ritual. Mathematics of the circle sums to 666, which is the same as New Mexico in Sumerian Gematria, 666. Look at the date numerology, 76 and 29. The word pi equals 76 in primes, 29 in reverse. Again, the date had double numerology of 49. Pi has double gematria of 49. Now, they initially reported that 4 people were dead. Pi equals 4 in LCH. But they later revised it to say that 7 were dead. And think about 7 times 7 equals 49, just like pi, just like the date numerology. I wonder if we'll ever get to find out the victims of the bus crash, right? Because so many people were prying into the victims of shootings and finding out there was a lot of sketchy shit going on. I wonder if they'll ever bother to give us the names of the bus crash victims. One more pi connection. There was a major bus crash October 23rd in California. This was back, let's see. This was back on October 23rd, 2016. And they said it killed 13 people. They also said it injured 31, like a 1331 tribute. This was all related to the solar eclipse, but that's for another video. If you measure from this bus crash in California, you find it's exactly 22 months and 7 days. Again, tying us back to the 30th of August, which has that 227 gematria. There's a lot more here as far as the word circle and pi. No doubt many connections. They said that the bus was traveling from St. Louis to Los Angeles. And St. Louis, Los Angeles has the same gematria as 3.14. Also, our hoax code appears in this as well. Notice how highway equals 1333 in gematria? I say that 1333 are the hoax and ritual codes. And look at the bus number. Greyhound bus 1333. You gotta be kidding me. One more thing I'll point out. There's gematria in the witnesses that they gave us for this crash. The most interesting one was this woman who interestingly drove by the scene of the accident and just gave us like a 10-second clip. Oh my God. Well, her name was Alex Huggins. Alex has the same gematria as bus, 42 and 21. And notice how the Twitter handle has the same gematria as the name, Alex Huggins and LX Huggins 24. And these are numbers tied into the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. And she even posted the tweet at 3:25, just like Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. So I don't believe anything about this bus crash. Again, there's no evidence. There's no proof. All we see is a staged scene. They could have easily closed down a small section of highway in the middle of nowhere in the fucking country and set this all up. Maybe they did have two collisions, you know, a remote semi with a remote bus. They can drive cars remotely. That's happening. We know that's happening. It's not that far out of the realm of possibility to think that that's might be what actually is going on. All right, next. Sorry, guys. That's my favorite picture in the top right there above my head with Trump fighting Google. You know, you got to love when CNN says something like this. Trump says Google search is rigged. It's not. Take Big Brother's word for it. It's not. You know, it's funny. Why is CNN even taking a side here? Shouldn't they say, we investigate, right? Trump says Google is rigged. CNN investigates. That would be the proper headline, not, it's not rigged, it's not rigged. You know, it's like they're in panic mode or something. It's so stupid. So this news came out on a date with the life lesson number of 47. And this, of course, is no mistake. Trump equals 47. Trump also equals 470 in Jewish gematria. The word news equals 47 and 47 in the Kabbalah. Now, the CEO of Google, who Trump is battling here in this story, his name is Sundar Pichai, I believe. And he's in his 47th year alive, right? He's 46 years old. This story came out 47 days after his birthday, right? And if you measure from the date that he took office as Google's CEO when they restructured into Alphabet, it was 47 weeks after that anniversary. CNN also gave us 477 gematria with their headline. And of course, the word Donald equals the word rigged. And you got to love the gematria here. If you want to check this out, you know, please check out my blog or just pause the video or whatever. But fake news media, check this out. Fake news media has this interesting gematria alignment of 116 and 1106, which is like a double upside down 9/11. This headline, or the subheadline on CNN, has gematria of 1016, which is paying tribute to the gematria of the phrase fake news media, which this story is all about. The numbers of Freemasonry also littered all over this headline. All right, the next story before we go into break here, we're going to talk about this. We had a fire at the Statue of Liberty, forcing an evacuation from Liberty Island. And the first thing that crossed my mind, because I read Zach's book, in the first chapter, it talks about the numerology of fire, right? So the number 26 seems to be significant to this whole thing. And for any wrestling fans, if you go back and look at when The Undertaker got roasted by that fireball at Elimination Chamber, that was on a date with 26 numerology as well. And think about it. All of these words sum to 26 in reverse reduction. Burn, blaze, flame, and torch. So, of course, this fire did have the date of the fire had 26 numerology. The 26th prime number is 101. This came 101 days before Andrew Cuomo's birthday. He's the governor of New York. The word statue in the alphabetic order equals 86. The Statue of Liberty was dedicated in 1886. That means it's 131 years old. And 131 is the 32nd prime number. Statue equals 32, septenary gematria. Also, statue equals 23 in single reduction and Chaldean. And the state of New York is 230 years old, also 32 days after its anniversary of the date of statehood. And as far as this 32 goes, the full name of Lady Liberty is Liberty Enlightening the World, which sums to 320 in ordinal. And again, it's 32 days after the birthday of New York. And the Statue of Liberty is the 32nd number or prime number of years old. So I assure you, this number 32 is really what pulls this whole ritual together. One thing to also consider, it's 303 days after, or I'm sorry, including the end date, it's 33 days after New York's anniversary. New York equals 33, reverse reduction. It's also 303 days after the dedication of the Statue of Liberty, or the anniversary. Liberty equals 303. It's also 304 days, including the end date. They're telling us 3,400 people were evacuated. This Statue of Liberty fire occurring in the year 2018. And in English Gematria, Statue of Liberty fire equals 218. And I lied. I am going to do one more story before we go into break so I can get into the Jacksonville shooting as soon as I get back. Louis C.K. is trying to make his return into comedy, and it's going rough already. You have these anonymous women saying they were offended by his joke. He talked about a rape whistle, I guess, and that's supposedly got these women upset. And this is what pisses me off about this shit. Look at this. This quote says, "How do you think the women in that room felt? It's just really frustrating." Well, I can guarantee you that some of the women in that room were probably just realized it's humor, and they're at a comedy show, and they're not here to, to be serious. But look, if this is how someone really felt, they should be willing to put their name behind their own opinion, right? Not this woman. This is an unnamed woman, or unnamed women. They both said this thing, I guess. So real quick, I'm going to go over the numerology of this performance. The comedy show occurred on the 26th, which had matching numerology with the reduction gematria of Louis C.K., 27 and 45. The date that we got this story was 13 days before Louis C.K.'s birthday. Also a span of 14. Oh, yeah. CK equals 14 in the alphabetic order. CK equals 13 in Jewish and reverse reduction. Of course, this story 13 or 14 days before his birthday. Now, here's what I want to talk about. In regards to Louis C.K. biting the dust originally, right? Everyone remembers that he got in trouble for really the most hilarious thing Louis C.K. could have possibly gotten in trouble for, which is not raping anybody, not actually assaulting anybody, but just pulling his pants down and jerking off in front of some girls. Like, that's something that actually adds to the humor of Louis C.K., in my opinion. It's just hilarious. And the whole thing is that, he asked for permission, and the only people he did it in front of said yes, right? So it's not like he raped a woman. It's nothing like that. But the media is sacrificing him as if he did. And let me explain the numerology of this character sacrifice. It's actually a Tisha B'Av ritual. And I'm going to start down here. Think about Louis C.K. and his birthday. Let's just look up Louis real quick. Louis was born on September 12th, 1967. That means on the date of the September 11 attacks in New York City, he was one day before his 34th birthday. 9/11 was a massive Tisha B'Av ritual. Tisha B'Av equals 134 reverse. Tisha B'Av is the Jewish holiday that commemorates the destruction of the two temples. September 11th is the date on which the two towers were destroyed here in America. The date that his character was sacrificed was November 9th. The date written 11/9, like September 11th, 9/11. Now, Tisha B'Av in Jewish Gematria sums to 9/11. And on the Hebrew calendar, it's the 11th day of the 9th month. Or do I have that backwards? It's the 9th day of the 11th month. Well, of course, September 11th, the 11th day of the 9th month. In Jewish Gematria, November 9th, the 9th day of our 11th month equals 1109 in Gematria as well, and this is no mistake. These dates are highly connected. What's wild, too, is that if you measure from the 9/11 attacks to the date of the Louis C.K. news when his movie got canceled, it was exactly 5,903 days, and that's the 777th prime number. That date, November 9th, is 8 weeks and 2 days after Louis C.K.'s birthday. Tisha B'Av equals 82 ordinal. It's also 58 days, and think about how Tisha B'Av commemorates the destruction of Solomon's temple and the Second Temple, 58 in reduction. One last thing about Tisha B'Av. Call this a coincidence if you will. I really don't think it is. In reverse extended, Tisha B'Av equals 2510. This headline they gave us equals 2510 in Satanic. And if you go to Wikipedia and look up the part that talks about his sexual misconduct, which I just said was a Tisha B'Av ritual, look at this. It's section 2.5.1 in the contents. Doesn't seem coincidental to me. All right, everybody. So with that, I'm going to quick jump on break and into the tunes with DJ Kolsch. All right, we'll be right back, everyone. right, everybody. Welcome back to the second half of the podcast. Hopefully we don't get my internet cut out again and forced into a third chunk of the video here. Next, we're going to talk about this shooting that happened last Sunday in Jacksonville. And again, I do have a video up on this on my channel, but I want to talk about a little more. The first thing I want to bring up is how this relates to previous shootings. Now, this shooting in Jacksonville, of course, in the state of Florida, the same state as the Marjory Stoneman Douglas shooting from earlier this year in February. It makes you wonder if are they limited on locations where they can actually carry these things out, because so much of it is happening in Florida. And really the most important number with the Stoneman Douglas shooting, or at least one of the most important numbers, was 612. It happened 612 days after the 612 Pulse nightclub shooting. Dunblane Massacre equals 612 in Jewish Gematria, just like Columbine High School. The Dunblane Massacre, which was a murder of first graders, occurred exactly 6,120 days before the first graders were murdered at Sandy Hook. So this number is super significant. The next major high school shooting in May of 2018 was at Santa Fe High School. And in all capital letters, Santa Fe High School equals 612. Well, now here we have another shooting, again in Florida, and it's 6 months, 12 days after the Marjory Stoneman Douglas shooting. Of course, no coincidence. So where I'm actually going to start with this is with the date numerology of 43. 8 plus 26 plus 1 plus 8. This equals 43. In the language of Gematria, Jacksonville equals 43. It also equals 191 in reverse, and this is the 43rd prime number. It's also the Gematria of active shooter in that same method. So Jacksonville, 43, a date with 43 numerology. Florida equals 43 reverse. So does the word killing. All of this 43. The date also had numerology of 52, matching Jacksonville, Florida when abbreviated in reduction. 52, also the Gematria of Madden football, and it was a Madden football video game tournament that was being played when the shooting broke out. The shooting occurred on August 26th, the date leaving 127 days in the year. Using the alphabetic order, Madden 19, the game they were playing, sums to 127. The hashtag that was floating around afterwards was called the landing mass shooting, which equals 127 single reduction. Now again, as I mentioned earlier, 127, the 31st prime number. Madden equals 31. Now Madden also equals 23. Jacksonville is the host of the NFL team, the Jaguars, 23. This shooting occurred exactly 23 weeks before the Super Bowl. And, you know, the Jacksonville Jaguars made the AFC title game last year. Could be part of this Super Bowl riddle, no doubt. All right, so what we do need to talk about is how this ties into the dates that local politicians took office. As I've been exposing at great length recently, this is a huge part of these rituals. So this number 227, we know it's super significant. It's all about ritual and symbolism to the ancient accepted Scottish rite of Freemasonry, which also has reverse reduction gematria of 227. Again, this number connected to pi and circles. Jacksonville, Florida, when abbreviated, equals 227 using the reverse method. Jacksonville, Florida is governed by Mayor Lenny Curry, which equals 227 ordinal, and Governor Rick Scott, which equals 227 reverse. Now, this is where it's really strange, right? The night before the shooting, we got this news story about a fan who ran onto the stage at a Jay-Z and Beyonce concert and actually got backstage. The dancers had to tackle this guy instead of security. That's because security was in on it. They allowed this. This whole thing was staged. So, what I noticed when researching that story is that CNN gave us a headline that summed to 706. Or was it 760? It was 706 in the alphabetic order. The governor of Georgia, where the story occurred, turned 76 on that date. The governor's name is John Nathan Deal, which equals 251 in the reverse order and in Frank Baconis. So how appropriate is it that this story was about Jay-Z and Beyonce, which sums to 2051. So I pointed this out right away. I said, here's your connection, the 251. This is why they're being used. Well, then the next day we got the Madden shooting. And look at how John Nathan Deal has the same gematria as Madden 19. 127, 251, also 71, and 478 in English gematria. So I thought this was all very strange. Looking back at the Jacksonville shooting, we find that the mayor of Jacksonville was exactly 2,510 weeks old. 251. Also, the state of Florida was 25 weeks and 1 day after the anniversary of it being admitted to the Union. And with all these 251s, this is a prime number. It's the 54th prime number. The date of the shooting had numerology of 54. And if I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, this is the kind of stuff I don't even feel comfortable sharing, because to me, this is the kind of stuff that leads us to a path of being able to make accurate predictions. If we can spot a news story and see all these certain numbers, punch it into a database that reads the ages, the dates that all these mayors and governors took office, we might be able to get closer to making predictions. And I absolutely believe this is the kind of path we would need to take to do that. Another thing, too, that was connected with this story. Think about how Jay-Z and Beyonce were in a concert in Atlanta, right? Atlanta, Georgia. When the shooting at the Madden 19 tournament began, both players were using the Atlanta Falcons, right? Atlanta against Atlanta. Not only that, Atlanta actually played Jacksonville in an NFL preseason game the night before the shooting, the same night that Jay-Z and Beyonce had their concert. And the score in that game, by the way, had a combined 23 points. And again, Jaguars 23, Madden 23. It was 23 weeks before the Super Bowl. A little bit more information about the mayor. It was exactly 3 years and 8 weeks after he took office. Madden 19 tournament in Gematria equals 380. This is a number of death and killing. Also, think about the rapper, Flo Rida. He's 38 years old. It just seemed logical for me to check the rapper named Flo Rida if all these alignments are together with Florida, and you'll see this again in a minute. The governor, meanwhile, remember how we were talking about all these 227s? Well, the governor was 7 months and 22 days after the 7th anniversary of him taking office as governor of Florida. 722, again, the number of ritual and symbolism. Well, at the Jay-Z and Beyonce concert, the governor, who was celebrating his birthday, was also 227 days after the anniversary of the date he took office. Another freaking 227. So, another thing that's important to understand about this, and I'm sure this is the thing Zach would have led off with, and it is very relevant. It all has to do with the Vesica Piscis. The Vesica Piscis, I believe, is the reason that we have a 53-man roster on the field, or on an NFL team. It's the reason we have a 53-yard wide field. Think about the shape of the football, right? It looks a lot like the Vesica Piscis, the intersection of two circles. Vesica Piscis in Gematria equals 53. And think about the symbolism here. Two circles intersecting, overlapping. This is a lot like an eclipse when the moon covers the sun. Solar eclipse also equals 53. Now, solar eclipse using the alphabetic order and Vesica Piscis both sum to 134. Look at the time that the shooting began. It was 1:34 p.m. The name of the bar that the shooting occurred at was Good Luck Have Fun, which in Jewish Gematria equals 1304. And this has been a significant number recently in the NFL. Recently, Josh Gordon was reactivated by the Cleveland Browns. That was 134 days after his birthday, which is on the date written 13/4. Also, Aaron Rodgers just signed a $134 million contract 13 weeks and 4 days before his upcoming birthday. So this number's been super significant recently, and it definitely has a lot to do with this shooting. There's a few more alignments with the governor. He was exactly 3,430 weeks old. Meanwhile, Flo Rida, the rapper, was 343 days after his birthday. 343 is 7 times 7 times 7, and this is our number of order out of chaos, numeric ritual, and more. Now, then they came out with the name of the shooter. The name of the shooter is David Katz. And the first thing that popped out at me is that David Katz equals 198 ordinal, or just 98 ordinal. Jacksonville, Florida equals 198 ordinal. The names of the victims even, we need to talk about those as well. We had True Boy, I know it was. It was, I forget this guy's nickname. Sorry, but I do know this other guy was named True Boy. Oh, come on. I picked the wrong website, I guess, for this. Taylor Robinson. His nickname was True Boy, so maybe that's not him. Sorry, guys, I'll do a post on this. I'll put it up after the video so I don't feel completely foolish about this. But, yeah, David Katz, 98. Jacksonville, Florida, 198. This guy who got shot, he's a professional gamer who's been, on all these NBA 2K League live streams. His name is Timothy Anselimo, and his name also sums to 198. But what's so interesting about the name David Katz, there's actually a couple of famous people named David Katz. The first of which is David L. Katz. He's an American physician, founding director of the Yale Griffin Prevention Research Center. This guy has his own Wikipedia page. He's kind of semi-famous. He graduated from both Yale and Dartmouth. Yale, the home of Skull and Bones. But check out how old he is on the date of the shooting. Exactly 666 months and 6 days. Are you kidding me? David Katz, the shooter, and this David Katz is this old. It's insane. But then I found this other David Katz. He's the CEO of Global Security Group. And look at this. He's an expert on active shooter situations. He's been on the news to discuss active shooting drills and supposed real-life active shooter situations. So what are the odds of this? In addition to all the numerology I'm showing you, this is just further evidence that there is a group that's coordinating all these things by the numbers. And as far as the victims, again, we got this guy, Timothy Anselimo, shot in Jacksonville. He's got matching gematria with the city. Also, his name and reduction matches the date numerology, which they put on the screen here when they talked about him on the news. So we talked about how the shooting in Jacksonville, Florida was on a date with 43 numerology. Both Jacksonville and Florida sums to 43. Well, the name Timothy also equals 43. His last name, Anselimo, sums to 43 in single reduction. He played for Bucks Gaming, which has matching gematria in 3 of 4 base ciphers with the word kill. And again, you got to appreciate that it's the name Timothy, which sums to 38. that number of death and killing and murder. Florida, also 38. Even though this guy's not dead, the symbolism still applies. Murder equals 34. The name Timothy equals 34. So does the name Anselmo, 34. His gamer tag was Larry, which equals 34, and he played for Bucks Gaming, which sums to 34. And in light of the 666 that we just looked at, right, with David Katz, they said that this guy was shot in the hand, thigh, and chest. And that has Gematria of 666 in English. And isn't it interesting they told us he was shot in the chest? Are you kidding me? Where's the chest wound? He's got his hand wrapped up. Maybe he has his thigh wrapped up. Where's the chest wound? This guy wasn't shot in the fucking chest. I think you're bullshitting me. And if you're asking me, oh, this guy's just a video gamer, he wouldn't participate in this. Look, this guy plays for something called the NBA 2K League, okay? They pay their guys just for 5 or 6 months of gaming or less. They pay him $32,000 just to go and play games. So this guy was probably not making that much money before he was doing this. It's not that hard to convince a video gamer to just do this and just keep playing video games for a job, you know? So it looks like masonry is creeping into the video game industry as well. No, that's what I'm taking away from all of this. And to be honest, I don't know for sure because, I mean, here you have a guy, a shooter who actually did win a Madden tournament several years ago. And what, is the Madden tournament rigged? I mean, maybe to some degree, I don't know. But I've noticed that there's a lot of professional Madden players that are making a lot of freaking money off of this game now. So it does seem possible, you know, that once you get a whole shit ton of money in these, you just pay these guys off. Next thing you know, you got a fake shooting in one of these tournaments. All right. So I'm going to skip over this story about the stage invader. I mean, we talked a little bit about this in relation to the Jacksonville shooting. I guess if there's anything more in here, again, it was celebrating the governor's 76th birthday. His name also matching numerology with the date. And a few more things that I just don't find terribly interesting. Feel free to check my post out on that. Little quick sports numerology. We'll talk about how Odell Beckham became the highest paid wide receiver in the league by the numbers. So the date that this contract extension was announced was August 27th, which is 70 days before Odell Beckham's upcoming birthday. He plays for the Giants, and using the alphabetic order, Giants equals 70. Including the end date, this is also a span of 71 days. Beckham Jr. equals 71 alphabetic order. He'll be making an average of $19 million a year with this contract. NY Giants equals 109, the name of the team. In extended gematria, Giants equals 367, which is the 73rd prime number. The numerology of the date of the signing was 73, 8 plus 27 plus 20 plus 18. The date also had a life lesson number of 46. Odell Beckham equals 46. And here they're talking about his new contract, which also equals 46. The date the contract was announced leaves 126 days in the year. In the alphabetic order, wide receiver equals 126. And I also pointed out that, you know, he plays for New York. This story came out the same day that we got news about the Statue of Liberty starting on fire, or a fire nearby anyway. Liberty equals 91 alphabetic order. Odell Beckham equals 91 ordinal as well. Beckham also has some interesting connections to the number 13, and just like wide receiver, right? And they did attribute this in the Gematria in CNN. And while we're on the topic of the NFL, just a quick decode I did last weekend about the coach of the Rams, Sean McVay. You know, there's really no doubt that all these NFL coaches are placed in their positions by the numbers because of their gematria and whatnot. So here we're talking about Sean McVay, who became the coach of the Los Angeles Rams. Now in gematria, LA equals 13. In reverse, it equals the 13th prime number. In extended, it equals the inverse of 13. California, by the way, the 31st state admitted to the Union. So now their coach for the LA team is Sean McVay. Sean McVay equals 103 and 1300. In reduction, his name sums to 31. Again, the 31st state is California. Using prime numbers, his name sums to 347. This is the same as the Jewish gematria of 13. Again, his name is 31 in reduction. The 31st prime number is 127. His name equals 1270 in Jewish. And look at how old he was when the Rams hired him. He was exactly 11,311 days old. Like a big giant 13 forwards and backwards. It's just hilarious. And as far as why the number 13 is so significant, I really think it has to do with the sun and moon. Using the alphabetic order, sun and moon equals 130. If you replace the and with the ampersand, this gives further support to Jewish gematria, sun and moon equaling 1300 in this method. Because that ampersand is worth 800. It doesn't get counted in English gematria. And really, Los Angeles, California, the gematria of this city is a tribute to the sun and moon and the Metonic cycle. The Metonic cycle is the 19-year period of time, of course, that it takes for the moon. So every 19 years syncs up with 235 lunar phases. Metonic cycle equals 127. And, remember, this is the 31st prime number, California, the 31st state. Well, in the reverse alphabetic order, Metonic cycle equals 197. This is the ordinal value of Los Angeles, California, 197. In Jewish gematria, it equals 547. Metonic cycle equals 547 in Satanic. Now think about how the Metonic cycle is 19 years long. Los Angeles equals 109 in the alphabetic order. In prime numbers, sun and moon equals 361. And this is 19 squared, 361, 19 squared. The word time in Greek equals 109 and 1090. LA Rams equals 19, so does McVay, 19. Finally, Metonic cycle equals 1108 in English gematria. In reverse reduction, Los Angeles, California equals 118. In English gematria, it sums to 647, which is the 118th prime number. And then, of course, California, just one of two states, that sums to 88 alphabetic order, a number that symbolizes the sun and moon. So I hope that was a fun one for you. This next one, not a whole lot of deaths this week, right? We had John McCain over the weekend. We had Aretha Franklin last week. Just yesterday, we got news that actress Vanessa Marquez, who's probably most famous from the show ER, she died yesterday on a date with 56 numerology. Vanessa Marquez equals 56 in reduction. And the woman that she played on the show ER, Wendy Goldman, equals 56 in reduction. The date she died also had double numerology of 49, the same day as the New Mexico bus crash. South Pasadena, California, when abbreviated, also summing to 49. The name Vanessa Marquez in the reverse method sums to 79, reduced. This is the same as the word murder, 79. 79, the 22nd prime number, which is the reduced numerology of the day she died. And I found it interesting that they said she was holding a BB-type gun. BB, like 22, just like the date numerology of 22. All right, guys, and to wrap the last 10, 15 or so minutes of this podcast up, we're going to talk about the serial killer from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, my hometown, Jeffrey Dahmer, who wreaked havoc on the city in the late 80s and early 90s. His murders actually spanned 13 years because he killed one person in Ohio in 1978. So, to me, this is some of the most undeniable evidence of this whole language in effect. All right. Let me find the post here, guys. So here's where we're going to begin. Some people would call this coincidence. I call this a huge clue as to what's really going on. Using the reverse alphabetic order, Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer equals 322. This is, of course, an infamous number known as the skull and bones number. Ancient mystery religions summing to 322, just like Abrahamic religions, 322, the religions that this code of letters and numbers is based from. Well, if you add up the gematria of every single person Jeffrey Dahmer murdered, it sums to 3,220 in the same reverse ordinal method, which is the same as his name in reverse. Again, so it's already, right off the bat, there's a huge clue that something's going on here. Well, Jeffrey Dahmer was infamous not just for the fact that he was a killer, but for the fact that he was supposedly a cannibal. He not only did he kill his victims, but he ate them, right? So how weird is this? The gematria of the word cannibalism. In ordinal, it sums to 97. Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer equals 97 in the reverse reduction method. You take out his middle name, you get 970 in English extended. The word death also equals 97 for the record. Now, Jeffrey Dahmer was first arrested for a different crime. It was indecent exposure, which equals 197 alphabetic order, and that occurred on a date with 97 numerology. When he was finally convicted of murder, it was a span of 97 days before his birthday. And if you take all the names of the people he murdered, in septenary gematria, it sums to 907. In reduction gematria, cannibalism equals 43. The word killing, also 43 in reverse. The name Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer, reverse extended, has this 4-3 sequence. Jeffrey Dahmer was murdered in prison. And it wasn't just he who was murdered. It was also a man named Jesse Anderson, who was another known killer in the city. He was kind of famous for the way in which he murdered his wife at a TGI Fridays. And that's probably a whole other ritual by itself. So Jeffrey Dahmer and Jesse Anderson sums to 430. But never mind that. We're still talking about the 43 from cannibalism. The 43rd prime number, as we discussed in the Jacksonville shooting story, is 191. Cannibalism, 43, the 43rd prime, 191. The name Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer, using the standard alphabetic order, equals 191. And when he was murdered, it was exactly 191 days after his birthday. So the word murder equals 34. He was 34 years old when he was murdered. The man who killed him, who was another inmate, was 304 months old. This death also related to the most recent total solar eclipse, which occurred 3 weeks and 4 days prior. The 34th prime number is 139. The name Christopher equals 139 in the alphabetic order. It was Christopher who was 304 months old when this happened. Now, I haven't mentioned solar eclipses much, right? Because, we're at like the 1 year mark after the eclipse, so there's not too much funky numbers going on with the dates. But this absolutely had to do with eclipses of the time, and I will continue that. So we're talking about Jeffrey Dahmer and Jesse Anderson, this combined ritual. Their names sum to 272 in ordinal. If you add up all the victims from Jeffrey Dahmer, it sums to 2720 ordinal. And this, no coincidence, 272, a number of death in multiple ciphers. Check out how serial killer equals 349 in Jewish Gematria. This is the 70th prime number. And the name Jeffrey Dahmer equals 79 in reduction. So, numbers and letters, dates on the calendar. We've already talked a little bit about the dates, but here's where it gets stone cold solid. Jeffrey Dahmer was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and committed all but one of his murders in or around the city, mostly in his apartment. Wisconsin became a state on May 29, 1848. May 29, 1848. If you measure from that date to the date that Jeffrey Dahmer was born, it was exactly 40,900 days with the end date included. With the zeros dropped, that looks like the number 49. The name Dahmer equals 49. The city of Milwaukee, meanwhile, was incorporated as a city on January 31st, 1846. And this is verifiable on Wikipedia, which sources it from many, many other places. January 31st, 1846. Milwaukee was exactly 114 years, 3 months, and 3 weeks old. And look at the name Jeffrey. 114 reverse, 33 reduction. So Dahmer equals Wisconsin's age. Jeffrey equals Milwaukee's age. This man born in Milwaukee, fucking Wisconsin. Going back to the number 49, we talked about how this number is related to pi. Pi has double gematria of 49. When he first committed a murder, it was on a date with a life lesson number of 49. He would later go on to be killed alongside Jesse Anderson, 49, by a man named Christopher Scarver. Scarver equals 49. And the date Dahmer was arrested for all his murders was on July 22nd, 1991, a date with another life lesson number of 49. And think about that date, July 22nd, the date written internationally as 227. Well, 227 is the 49th prime number. And again, 22 divided by 7 gives us pi. The name, Jeffrey Dahmer, using the reverse alphabetic order, equals 227. And look at what date he committed his first murder. It was June 18th, which equals 227 in that same method. Now, the 227th prime number is 1433. And this brings us right back around to the age of Milwaukee. You got that 1433 sequence in the age, in the Gematria of Jeffrey. But we're really going to focus on this 33, the number of Masonic obsession. Jeffrey Dahmer moved out of his grandmother's house and into an apartment in Milwaukee in 1990, and that's where he started committing murders like crazy, right? Well, when he moved into that apartment, he was exactly 30 years and 3 days. And that's where he would come to be known as the Milwaukee Cannibal. Milwaukee Cannibal equals 303. The date he died, November 28th, leaves 33 days on the year. And think about how Jeffrey, which sums to 33, was killed by a man named Chris, which equals 33. They were born exactly 3,333 days apart. And he died exactly 330 days before the next solar eclipse. Eclipse equals 33. Now in Hebrew Gematria, eclipse equals 156, which is the same as the ordinal Gematria of 33. The nickname Milwaukee Cannibal also equals 156. So Jeffrey Dahmer's birthday, May 21st, the date leaving 224 days in the year. In the alphabetic order, 3.14 equals 224. When he was first arrested, he was 22 years, 2 months, 2 weeks, and 4 days old. So a 224, right? 2 months, 2 weeks, 4 days after his 22nd birthday, 22422. And on that date, he got arrested for indecent exposure at Wisconsin State Fair. Wisconsin State Fair equals 224. Now this brings us to our number of dishonesty. On that date, he was exactly 8,113 days old. The name Dahmer equals 113. And if you look up the police story about his arrest, you'll find that police were flagged down to arrest him at 11:30 at night. His preliminary hearing was then held on January 13th, written 113. And when the trial began, it was a span of 113 days before his birthday. In fact, his first 2 murders occurred barely 113 months apart. And 113, this is a number that appears to be coded into our language, talking about dishonesty and lack of truth. And even the murders Dahmer committed were by the numbers. Think about how the word kill in Satanic Gematria equals 184. When he committed his first kill, he was exactly 18 years and 4 weeks old. He ended up dying 184 days after Wisconsin's anniversary. His second kill was a span of 184 days after his birthday. And oddly enough, he was exactly 10,044 days old on the date of his second murder. Killer equals 144. Again, he killed 17 people, allegedly. I'm only looking at the first and second and then the last person he killed, right? Because those are the most important. And just check it out. He moved into apartment 213. 213, like the gematria of the word death. And it said he killed 17 people. Kill equals 17. The 17th prime number is 59. His final kill was 59 days after his 31st birthday. So he was 31 years old. Dahmer equals 31. Killer equals 31. Also, 59 days is 8 weeks and 3 days. Murder equals 83. So all of this done by the numbers. So if you measure from the date of Jeffrey Dahmer's first murder to the date of his last murder, including the end date, it was 13 years and 32 days. The man who would then later murder Jeffrey Dahmer is named Christopher Scarver, which equals 1332. Christopher Scarver matches Milwaukee, Wisconsin in 3 of the 4 base ciphers, also the Kabbalah. And, if you don't include the end date here, measuring between Dahmer's murders, it's 1331. And if you follow my work, you know how fond I am of 1331. It's truly my favorite number. It's one that represents a solar eclipse. And all these numbers of eclipse and pi are coded into this ritual as well. So pi, using the alphabetic order, equals 25, remember? Well, look at how old Christopher Scarver was when he murdered Jeffrey Dahmer. He was 25 years, 20 weeks, and 5 days. 25. Also, he was born in the year 69. The word pi equals 69. There's a little bit more here towards the end of the post in regards to Jesse Anderson and the court trial, all concocted by the numbers of Freemasonry. But I'm not going to get too deep into that. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this podcast up here, seeing as we're at the 2-hour mark. I want to give a special shout-out to Zenith of the Alpha, who's been active in the chat like the entire time, as far as I can tell. I really do think that this whole keypad Gematria thing, that there's something to it. I'm going to keep studying it first. I'm not going to put it on the calculator quite yet. If I add a cipher to the calculator, there's actually a whole lot of hoops I got to jump through in order to make it work with the database to keep the website functioning. So I'm not going to do it quite yet, but I am going to be observing it and paying attention to it and seeing if we can't use it to pin down any more numerical alignments that are very significant. You know, I only teach like 4 of the 8 reduction ciphers I have on my site, and then I barely ever look at Septenary and Chaldean, right? Because what I'm very mindful of is using too many ciphers and making people think that you can do anything with numbers. As I just showed you in this Jeffrey Dahmer pi ritual, I mean, it's obvious what they're doing. We only need the ordinal reverse ciphers and then the dates on the calendar. That's all we need. That's all we need, guys. We're trying to spread information about what's going on, and that's all we need. However, there's a lot of different ways that these numbers are being attributed, and it's fascinating, right? I mean, the whole thing with the phone Gematria lining up to 9/11 with Lowell, Massachusetts, you know, it's of certain significance that that's done in the phone cipher. So I do want people to allow that to, I do want to allow people to see that kind of thing and explore that themselves. So yeah, special shout out to Zenith again, of course. I know Zach Hubbard was dropping a lot of knowledge in the chat. Shout out to my cousin Tommy, who's in the chat. I've been telling you, man, I'll buy you lunch sometime. We can talk numbers. You know, this is a guy who used to follow Zach's work, and I just realized, hey, this is my cousin, you know. And, you know, we both have some good genes that I think kind of make sense of all these numbers. But that'll do it for this podcast, the 24th. Actually, we will not see you again next Saturday. Just to let everybody know, I might be going live on like Thursday evening next week and just going over some of my posts to do a little shorter edition, since I won't be available to do the podcast next weekend. All right, everyone. Peace out. God bless. Keep seeking and speaking that truth. I'll leave you with a song called Reykjavik, like the Icelandic capital, by an artist named Joachim Pastor. Thanks, everybody, and have a good one.